Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Rachel Beatty, Field Marketing Manager at Wiley, and I'm excited to welcome you to this session on opening the door to open access, scalable pathways for library involvement. As open access continues to grow globally, libraries are at the center of this transformation, but not every institution has the resources or the infrastructure for large-scale agreements. Today, our speakers will explore practical, scalable pathways that empower libraries to make a meaningful impact on open access publishing, regardless of size or budget. By the end of this session, you'll have a clearer understanding of how your institution can participate in the OA movement in ways that align with your priorities and capacity. Before we dive in, here's a quick look at our agenda. We'll start with an overview of the OA landscape and key challenges. Then we'll hear society perspectives on OA partnerships. Next, we'll explore an institutional use case with the practical steps they took for implementation. After that, we'll have an interactive discussion based on some of your feedback. We'll wrap up then with a Q&A session at the end. We do want this to be an interactive session, so please put all of your questions into the Q&A section on your screen, and speakers will do their best to answer live or following the program. And with that, I would like to briefly introduce the speakers you'll be hearing from today. Christine Fruin is the Director of Publications for the American Counseling Association, the ACA. Christine leads the ACA's publishing program, overseeing journals, books, digital resources, and strategic partnerships. She brings nearly 20 years of experience in academic publishing and scholarly communication, with deep expertise in open access, copyright, and publishing ethics. Christine is also a frequent national and international presenter and has an extensive record of scholarship in leading journals and professional publications. She holds a Juris Doctor from Southern Illinois University and an MSLIS from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Next, we have Jerry Rinna, who has 25 years of experience as an information professional. Jerry has worked at Western Michigan University for 15 years and currently serves as the collections strategist librarian. She leads evidence-based collection and development, electronic resources management, licensing, assessment, and open access initiatives. Previously, she was an electronic resources librarian and specialist overseeing the electronic resource lifecycle, systems integration, analytics, and user access. Earlier roles include elementary and middle school library technical specialist. And finally, we have Sarah Whalen, who brings over 20 years of publishing experience, starting her career in book publishing as the international coordinator for the Alfred A. Knopf imprint at Penguin Random House. After shifting to scholarly publishing, she gained expertise in journal production and editorial management at Elsevier and Wiley. From 2015 to 2023, she chaired various working groups and publishing initiatives on topics such as open science, metadata standards, and global outreach as the director, business strategy, and portfolio management at AAA Science. In her current role as Director Open Research Americas at Wiley, she covers developments in the OA policy landscape in the Americas and engages various stakeholders to understand their needs and perspectives on open research. So, with that, let's dive in and start by hearing from Sarah, who will start us off with the big picture of open access.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to walk through Wiley's history of open access and the current pathways we offer for open access publishing with Wiley. So by the end of my presentation, I'm hoping that you'll know the full range of options we provide and also have some insight into which option may be the best choice for your institution and your publishing needs. So Wiley has made significant progress in advancing open access in the last 2 decades. Since launching our first fully open access journals in 2011, our portfolio has grown to include over 600 fully open access titles. And this is an achievement made through new launches, acquisitions, and the transition of a number of hybrid journals to a fully open access model. We are continually signing transformational agreements across the world. Our approach to open access is always evolving to meet our customers' needs and also to ensure a broader open access future. This slide shows the relationship between OA article growth and the number of transformational agreements between 2018 and the end of 2024. As the number of agreements increased, open access article output rose significantly. The concentric circle chart on the left shows the percentage of open access articles funded by transformational agreements each year. The line graph on the right illustrates the steady rise in agreements. Last year, nearly 50% of all articles published in Wiley journals were open access. Approximately 60% of those were enabled by transformational agreements. While transformational agreements continue to be the cornerstone of open access publishing at Wiley, they are not the only option. We also offer options that enable open access publishing outside of a transformational agreement. Our equity initiatives enable open access publishing in underrepresented regions. Our participation in Research for Life offers waivers and discounts to middle and lower income countries. Our open access pricing power parity pilot provides discounts to authors in 33 countries in Latin America. These initiatives provide more options to publish open access across various regions. As you can see, between Wiley's expansive gold and hybrid journal portfolio, existing transformational agreements, our partnership with Research for Life, and our unique OA pricing power parity pilot, we have strong coverage for researchers. We also understand that open access is not a single one-size-fits-all solution. For institutions that are not covered by a transformational agreement, we also provide the option to open a Wiley Open Access account, also known as WOAs. WOAs provide a low-risk, flexible entry point for institutions interested in exploring open access publishing. Our accounts provide flexible payment options, transparent APC policies, and easy setup. With a WOA account, an institution can control their publishing budget via a self-service dashboard that works with their unique publishing output and cadence. WOAs can be applied to gold, hybrid journals, or both. Option to prepay or post-pay, and you can choose the contract length that works best for your research program. We currently have over 2,600 institutions that offer open access publishing via a Wiley open access account, covering over 250 subject areas and over 1,800 journals. With the WOA dashboard, you can control the budget, funding, and reporting in real time. These are just a sample of the functions available on the WOA dashboard that make tracking and payment seamless for your account. Our WOA accounts have already increased open access publishing globally, with over 530 WOAs in North America, over 2,200 accounts across EMEA, and over 300 accounts across the APAC region. These numbers continue to grow and expand the possibilities for an open access future for all. All of our open access options have resulted in a robust portfolio and open access growth. These are just a few metrics that show the positive impact of open access on a journal portfolio. Now we will hear from two of our prestigious partners about their real-time experience publishing open access at Wiley.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to participate today. So I kind of sit in a unique and interesting space when it comes to evaluating open access and the options. Currently, as was shared during the introduction and my bio statement was read, I am the Director of Publications for the American Counseling Association, which is a member organization for professional mental health counselors and students of mental health we have about 60,000 members, and a large portion of our membership is actively engaged in scholarly publishing. But my path to getting to this role started first in law school. I did go to law school first with the intention of practicing law, but instead, after a brief stint in that, I pivoted to law library to do electronic resource management, and from there moved to collection development in a large academic institution, a large university, and then eventually in the early 2000s, libraries were specifically seeking folks that had the JD MLS to professionally practice in the area of scholarly communications. That became a much more prevalent buzzword and role for libraries. So I went from e-resource licensing to collection development to becoming a scholarly communication librarian. From librarianship, then I pivoted to the association or scholarly society space. First, working at a small library association, managing our open access press, as well as providing scholarly communication consultation, developing scholarly communication programs, managing digital projects. I was also very active at that time in the Library Publishing Coalition, which many of you may have familiarity with, serving as both a board member and eventually board president. And then for the last over 2 years now, I have been the director of publications with ACA. Throughout this entire career, I have regularly worked with authors, with editors, of course, with libraries, and with various publishing partners. And it's this kind of dual perspective that I've had that has really set kind of my perspective on open access. So when I moved from libraries into a more scholarly society association role, I was immediately struck by how aligned the values of these two spheres of institutions were. When I was a librarian, I thought about access largely at the institutional level, thinking about who can read, who can afford, scholarship, and how library budgets shaped our collections. And then when I moved into a association or society role, that lens shifted, and I was instead seeing how publishing decisions impacted discrete communities of scholars and researchers. And so now, for example, when an editorial board member asks whether we should encourage more open access submissions, it is not now just about access and visibility. I'm now thinking more about what happens to authors that don't have funding. So instead of being at a single institution, at a society now, I have authors or editors who are at multiple institutions, who have access to different kinds of agreements, or, I think subvention funds are not nearly as prevalent as they once were. And so now I'm thinking a lot more globally about impacts to authors from different institutions who may or may not have access to funding, what happens to the programs that the journal supports, and also what happens when revenue fluctuates from year to year. So even though kind of the lens shifted, there was still kind of this alignment around equity and access and impact, even though the risks were different. And so while libraries are, when I was in the library space, we were very much focused on access and equity and long-term affordability. As a society professional now, I'm looking at really our mission and how can we support through research publications, through open access, support our mission as an association. How can we serve our members and the profession and the field and still maintain financial viability for us as an association? And so open access kind of sits right at the intersection of those priorities. So, from the society perspective, open access is not just an abstract principle. It's really a strategic decision for us and how we want to promote and support it. We don't approach open access as kind of an ideological question, which when I started my career in libraries and especially in the field of scholarly communication, in the early 2000s, open access very much was still kind of this ideological ideal, something that we were trying to find pathways to. And so now I approach it much more as kind of a stewardship question. What can we do to promote open access? And because we are no longer just responsible for the content, but for the ecosystem around it. And so I've sat in conversations with our editors where they have expressed the desire to make research more accessible, And this is very strong in the field of counseling because there is such a large practice base. There are a lot of students. And so accessibility is very important. But this desire to make research accessible is balanced against some of the realities, which, as I mentioned in the previous slide, the availability of open access, across the profession. Practitioners who maybe want to publish research don't necessarily have access to funding. And so there may be individual authors that lack the means to support open access. But also, I have to think about our needs as an association to subsidize mission driven activities. So societies like ACA, we are a nonprofit member association, but we are also mission driven. And while we do derive publishing revenue, it doesn't just support journal publishing. At ACA, our publishing revenue underwrites conference participation, professional development, and continuing education opportunities for counselors, development of professional standards for the counseling profession, as well as we are very active in legislative advocacy work. And so our publishing revenue is distributed across a lot of mission-driven programs. So from a society standpoint, partnerships matter because they allow us to say yes to open access without us having to build and manage the entire infrastructure ourselves. So this includes policy compliance, waiver management, supporting programs for discoverability. So work that libraries necessarily can't support, but publishers have to be available to support. So therefore, we evaluate OA through two core lenses, as I stated, equity and sustainability. And so partnerships with publishers such as Wiley help us manage the infrastructure and policy compliance and the operational complexity that comes with open access, and while still staying true to our mission-driven programs. So opportunities, definitely open access definitely creates opportunities for scholarly societies and associations such as ACA, particularly in counseling fields. It helps us expand our reach beyond academia. And so, as I've said, we have a very large base of private practitioners who don't necessarily have access to institutional subscriptions or and such. And so we have to think beyond our academic audiences, and also thinking globally. And what the field of mental health counseling needs are, not just in the United States but also globally, and what those how those audiences and potential readers and authors manage their access. And so for ACA, our mission is not just to advance research, but to ensure that counseling research informs practice and reaches various communities. And so open access supports that responsibility and strengthens our relationships with both authors and libraries. And one of the most tangible opportunities that we see with open access is reaching beyond traditional academic audiences. And we've also seen, so we see especially open access articles circulate widely through professional networks, through social media, practitioner communities, in ways that simply don't happen with subscription-only access. And this kind of reach strengthens our association's relevance and reinforces why publishing is central to our mission and why we need to develop programs to sustain it. It is not just a means of revenue for us. It is really mission driven. So open access changes the conversation with authors. When authors know their work can reach practitioners and communities directly, it becomes part of why they might choose a particular journal to publish in, which we publish several counseling journals, and they want them to choose us, not just for impact factor or prestige, but because we offer them opportunities to have that kind of reach and impact. So for societies, the challenges are real, and I think it's important to name them very honestly and succinctly. Revenue uncertainty is a huge one, and is not some abstract principle. So the revenue that we derive from our journals is something that we watch very carefully, and is a big part of our budget. And as I said, it's support because we are a nonprofit. Those revenues do go to support other mission-driven programs. So publishing income, as I shared, underwrites a variety of programs that support the mission of ACA, and educating and professional development of our counselors. So, of course, one big challenge is author equity. APC-based models can inadvertently privilege authors with grant funding or, at institutions with transformative agreements, while excluding practitioners, early career scholars, or those at teaching-focused institutions. And so that's where the real tension comes in for societies who are, such as ours, who are committed to inclusive publishing. Operationally, it's also complex. Managing waivers, tracking compliance, responding to funder mandates. I have a very small department, and as was shared at the beginning, we not just publish journals, but we are involved in publish. We have a large book publishing, and so partnerships like the one we have with Wiley are significant because they help take on some of those operational tasks that I don't have the staff or the bandwidth to manage. So that's where, incremental models, library support, publisher partnerships are not just helpful, but really essential for sustainability and viability of our journal publishing program. So, where alignment happens for us is when open access models are scalable, flexible, and respectful of local priorities. From a society perspective, sustainability is an equity issue. They are one and the same. So, if a society such as ours cannot sustain our publishing program, then we can no longer meet our mission of serving the community of members and the broader practice community. The most successful open access pathways are not all or nothing for us. They have to allow societies and libraries to build trust and capacity over time. Alignment happens when open access models respect and acknowledge how societies such as ours actually function. And that requires scalable models, which allow us to experiment, to learn, and to adjust. So that flexibility is really, really important. And from where I sit, sustainability, as I said, is an equity issue. If our publishing program becomes unstable, the people that are most affected are the student members that we have, marginalized voices, and practitioners who are out there in the field and don't have the benefit of institutional subscription models. So library-supported open access models that are flexible and that help societies move forward responsible helps us create a space of trust and collaboration. So what does this mean for libraries? So for this is what's most important, that you do not need to solve alone all the open access problems and questions in order to make a difference. Modest, well-aligned open access support can change what societies are able to do to support research. When libraries support open access in ways that align with their own priorities and capacities, you help societies also say yes to access, yes to equity, and yes to innovation without destabilizing the overall system. And that's when libraries move from just being partners or purchasers of content to actually being partners with societies and association in missions. So the takeaway I'd like to leave with you is this. Libraries do not need transformative agreements to make a meaningful difference. Targeted, well-managed open access support helps societies say yes to open access in ways that are responsible and mission aligned. And when that happens, libraries become true partners with us in scholarly communication, not just purchasers of content. So my final thought is just this. Open access works best when access and sustainability advance together and in collaboration. That balance is where libraries and societies are most aligned. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jerry Renna. Can you hear me okay? I think you need to move to the next slide, please. So I've been at Western Michigan University for 15 years, like Rachel mentioned earlier, and working in my current position as electronic resources and collection strategist librarian since late 2021. Previous to that, I was an electronic resources librarian, and I worked closely with our collection strategist who retired at the end of June 2020. In March of that year, something happened. You all remember it, I'm sure. We experienced a 20% reduction in our materials budget, and an equivalent reduction occurred with the operations budget. So not only did we lose a big chunk of our funding for resources, but we lost a team member through attrition, and her responsibilities were transferred to me. Um, Wearing two hats and having to continually make these cancellation decisions doesn't make for a lot of time to read and research. So I'm in no way an expert on open access programs, but I do believe that information is the cost of information is the most important issue that publishers, libraries, and authors must find an equitable solution for all concerned. Historically, my library administration protected the materials side of the budget. And except for that reduction in 2020, our budget was flat for 15 years. This reduction, however, completely eliminated any agility we had and drastically changed some longstanding practices, specifically around monographic acquisitions and purchasing those, perpetual humanities collections with the end of year funds. We no longer have end of year funds. We now rely primarily on endowments to pay for monographic acquisitions and also for a handful of the longstanding electronic database subscriptions that we maintain. I don't believe endowments are a permanent replacement for a firm budget, though. And like many libraries out there, we begin every year with a de facto budget cut of between 3 and 8% due to that flat budget combined with the annual subscription cost increases. So that's some background on me and the budget. Institution-wise, we're probably going to be reclassified as an R1 at some point. And we have decreasing FTE, which is about average. Our enrollment is about 17,500 people. We have a new president as well, and the university will be switching from the SRM budget model to another model in July, but I don't think that's going to impact our budget at all. So our most recent strategic plan contains several collections related goals and objectives focusing on things like DEI, accessibility, open access, and transparency around collection development practice, a few of which are listed on this slide here. These are daunting goals given the fact that we're in a state of perpetual cancellation, but I don't believe they're impossible. And these are the models that we have adopted to support our strategic goals. Right now, we have 5 transformative agreements in play that were negotiated through our consortium. The oldest one expires at the end of this year, and the newest one expires at the end of 2028. At this time, it's unclear whether we'll be renewing them. We have to see how they perform for our authors and whether we have the funding to continue to subscribe. We have collections and single titles in the subscribe to open bucket. I really like subscribe to open. I'm not really sure why, but it provides universal access so long as a subscriber threshold is reached. And we've been participating in S2O since their inception. We also participate in OA ebook programs through small university presses. And we have an open educational resource writing and adoption grant, which I'm only mentioning because it's part of our overall open access program. Here it's linked to the same strategic goals. And the folks that do the public facing work on OA and OER work as a team. And then we have WOAA, which this is the first program of its kind that we've participated in so far. The day-to-day management of the open access programs in general are no longer part of my workload. The technical part of management is really nothing to speak of, but the public facing work is time consuming. And so that is done by others now. I do all the provisioning stuff beforehand, the technical stuff in the middle, and the renewer or cancellation stuff at the end. But our chair is the one that now manages approval on the moderated transformative agreements. And both our chair and scholarly communications librarian manage the public information and communicate directly with our constituents on campus about open access. Our WOAA account is moderated, but it's very user-friendly. The interface is nice. My chair says it just takes a minute to approve an article for publication. So our first transformative agreement was actually with Wiley, and it ran from 2022 to 2024. That TA was also negotiated through our consortium and included several other institutions. We felt like it was very popular with our authors and has been the most utilized for publishing so far. It was actually negotiated before I put that collections hat on, so I'm not speaking with 100% authority here, but I believe that WMU had the highest institutional participation in this program, and that we also use more than our fair share of the APC tokens available to the entire group. But because of the popularity, I didn't want to discontinue this program altogether. But as previously mentioned, we have that 3 to 8% that we have to cut every year. And, after 4 years, we only have big deals and journal package subscriptions to break to meet our current budget constraints. And this particular contract was up for renewal. So the best thing we could do for our users was to try to continue in some way that would fit our budget while still providing access to the Wiley journals that are most important to our faculty's teaching and research. And how we did that is we took the cost of the last year of our transformative agreement through Wiley. We subtracted our budget for shortfall. Then we calculated an estimate on the amount we thought we would need to cover APCs for 3 years based on the Wiley APC tokens that we utilize under the transformative agreement. And we subtracted that amount as well, which left us with the amount that we could afford to spend on a custom journal package with Wiley. I created a data set with like title level, subscription cost, historical cost per use, title overlap with aggregators, subject overlap with other journals and journal packages, impact factor, etc. And then liaisons shared that data with our faculty on campus, and together they made our selections for what journals we would retain based on that data. And that is what we did for 2025. So this chart shows the 3 years under the transformative agreement, 2022 through 2024. And then 2025, that shows when we switched to the WOA or Wiley Open Access account. And as you can see, this switch was very impactful for our users. I think that phenomenal increase in APC use in 2025 is directly related to the increased communication between our liaisons and the library chair out to the broader WMU community. I don't know if that dip in year 3 is because all the tokens for the program had been used, but it certainly didn't mean that there was no interest from our faculty to publish this way in 2025. We also received no complaints about not having access to the journals we couldn't afford. And I think our liaisons and our faculty and I had a great learning experience that first year. So really, the only challenge I see is one of sustainability. We're precipitously close to depleting what we hoped would be 3 years of open access funding in just about 14 months. And the only way we have to top up the WOA fund is through further cancellations, which we have done for 2026. We do have other breakups happening, including our largest and longest standing journal package. We also have several multi-year contracts, including those TAs previously mentioned, expiring in the next few years, and we'll scrutinize and likely break up in the same way, possibly to include similar author support. If our success with Wiley is an indication of how we can expect other big deal breakups and APC payment programs like this to proceed, uh, within a few years, we're going to get into a situation where we're going to have to choose to either subscribe to journals or to fund authors. But I don't see us being able to do both. So librarians need to continue to bring this topic forward with our colleagues and throughout higher education so that we can move forward in a more equitable way. But I'm pleased that the process of switching from a big deal transformative agreement to WOA facilitated that transparency piece of our strategic plan and has engaged faculty across campus in this discussion and shined a light on the services that libraries provide to their constituents. So what's next? I don't know. At what point do you decide you can no longer fund access to information and publishing in this way? That's my question. But using WOA has been one way to try to find that answer. We have, of course, buckets of funding available across campus, but they've also been affected by that same budget cut that's dogged us for the last 5 years. Standing up a server or using our current institutional repository and or like hosting open access journals for our own research to be administered locally is also an expense requiring hardware, software, and staffing. I don't really have a vision for how to solve this problem. And it's certainly not my problem alone, but I'm very proud to say that we funded more publishing last year than in the previous 3 years, which I think is terrific. We created transparency between the libraries and faculty on campus about the cost of information. And we added another tool in our toolbox to help us work toward that equitable and sustainable solution that Christine talked about. Thanks.
I just want to thank Christine for her great presentation on the society perspective, particularly the opportunities that OA brings to societies, and also the emphasis on access and sustainability when launching or growing your publishing program. I also want to thank Jerry for her institutional perspective, particularly around budgets, how to make a budget work when you're in the face of cuts. And also how a mixed model helps to maintain and enhance your library collection in the face of budget cuts. And it's great to hear that you've published more in the past year than you have in the past 3, given all these challenges. So we'd like to move on now to Q&A and also the poll results. So it looks like what's your institution's biggest barrier to open access? Budget constraints seems to be ahead right now, limited funds for APCs or transformational agreements. Similar to what Jerry addressed, the budget constraints that she's seeing at her institution and how she's been able to navigate those challenges was very interesting. And also our discussion about how there's multiple models and there's multiple options, particularly at Wiley, with the WOAs, with the transformational agreements and our equity initiatives. But it's a constantly evolving landscape. And we're always keeping our eyes on what's happening, what will best meet the needs, not just of our customers now, but also in the future. And then the second seemed to be administrative complexity. Challenges are in managing open access workflows and compliance. I don't directly work with the administrative side of it, but I know that in terms of our WOA accounts, we've received positive feedback on the administration capabilities on the dashboard and how it makes payment and management of a budget and reporting much easier. But I'd like to hear more maybe in the Q&A about specific administrative challenges and also opportunities to address any questions there. And then from the cultural resistance, the hesitancy among researchers to publish OA, that's very interesting. In terms of what Wiley's doing for communications, we have some great social media channels, Wiley and also Wiley in Research, that we provide. We like to provide primers on open access on a regular basis. We have a great marketing team that provides this information and white papers to keep people up to date on not just like open access policies and terms, but also what that means for them. So I encourage everyone to join those channels, Wiley and Wiley in Research, if you'd like to, ongoing information on open access. And I think we can move over to the Q&A session.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. A huge thank you to all of our speakers, Sarah, Christine, and Jerry. Apologies for some of the technical difficulties we're having too. Of course, with any live event, we're at the mercy of technology. So thank you for your patience in that. We have had a couple questions come through the Q&A box throughout the webcast. So I'll go through them one by one for our remaining time. We have about 15 minutes left. And please be sure to ask your questions, put them in the chat as we go on, and I'm sure the speakers would be happy to answer. Let me see. So this could be for anyone, but I'll start with Sarah. What trends in OA publishing are you most excited to see right now?
That's a great question. I think I've been in publishing for 20 years and I've seen this increase in open access. And what I've noticed over probably about the past 10, but definitely the past few years, is originally when open access hit the publishing industry, there was a drive to find a single solution as quickly as possible and to kind of cover everyone and continue publishing without missing a beat. And now I think there's acknowledgement that multiple models are a much better approach to open access, especially globally, where different regions have adopted open access in different ways and also at different cadences. And it's exciting to see not just Wiley, but other publishers as well, experimenting and trying out different models and adding them to to our toolkits to make sure that we have something for everyone. Our customers range in sizes and needs and disciplines. And so there isn't one size fits all. So it's a very exciting, innovative time in publishing, and it's fun to be able to follow the developments as part of my role at Wiley.
Absolutely. Jerry or Christine, did you have anything to add to that? Is there anything you're excited about with open access trends moving forward? Or some uncertainty too, so I can understand that.
Well, I guess, having been an observer of it since kind of the dawn of open access, since the three kind of global statements, the three Bs came out, I have just really been watching the evolution with a lot of cautious optimism. There's a lot of creativity and experimentation that has been both, has been very tenuous. It has failed, it has succeeded. And I just still sit in this place of cautious optimism. And, just, yeah. So I wouldn't say, I don't think I would color any of my observations as excitement.
Completely understandable. I'm sure many are in the same boat. This one would be for Sarah or Jerry, or both, really. What advice would you give to libraries just starting their OA journey? Jerry, do you want to kick us off?
Well, I would just say, I think it's important that you need to try to find what works best for your institution. And I think that means trying out all the options. That's kind of what we did. We have little buckets of open access throughout the collection, and they're all managed in different ways. They're all paid for in different ways, and they all have advantages and disadvantages. And I think you just need to do some experimentation and find what fits best for your institution. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, that's great advice. Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, in addition to the resources that I stated on social media, we also on Wiley.com, we have an open access page that has, can walk you through steps on figuring out what your needs are and how we can match those with what we offer. I also just want to highlight that, on that page there is contact information. Don't hesitate to contact us directly if you need to get on a call, you would like to have a conversation, kind of talk through what your concerns are, what your questions are, and what your actual needs are, and we can help you find the right fit.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We have the experts to do it and do not hesitate to reach out. I love that. Okay, so Christine, this would be for you. What opportunities do you see for societies to innovate in OA publishing?
Sure. I mean, I think that there's significant opportunities for innovation, particularly in how societies, can collaborate with libraries and publishers. Because I have stood and sat in that library space, I have been trying to do some marketing and outreach to, I spent some time identifying who either the liaisons at accredited counseling programs, identifying the library liaisons, and have done some targeted outreach to them, not only informing them of our publications, but just kind of opening the door for communication about, how can we collaborate to not only, recruit authors and readers, but also to make sure that research is more open and accessible. We recently launched a digital publishing platform, which is intended to be kind of a hub of counseling research with a goal of making more things available there, openly accessible. And so I'm still kind of waiting for some responses to that email, but that's one of the tactics that I have been working on, is just kind of opening up lines of communication. I think there's room for experimentation with kind of more targeted open access funding or discipline specific approaches. As we are preparing to enter FY27 budgeting, I'm trying to find if there is a way for us to potentially fund maybe graduate student authored research. And again, I would look towards libraries or even towards Wiley as a way of, marketing that as well. So that is something that, that I want to experiment with, as well as just looking at, other kind of models that prioritize, reach and impact rather than just volume of research. So yeah, I think it's really about experimentation at this point, and creativity, and wanting to like brainstorm with my library partners on ways that we can work together, or ways that they would like to see us do more.
Absolutely. Yeah, keeping that line of communication open and often seems to be the underlying theme here. Great ideas. Okay, we have a couple more. Jerry, this would be for you. How did you evaluate different OA options before choosing a Wiley open access account? If you did, and if you touched on this a little bit before, maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, I may have kind of like blown through my slides because I tend to talk fast when I'm giving a presentation, but we did have a transformative agreement for 2 years through Wiley. It was an agreement that was negotiated through our consortium, and there were, a bunch of other institutions in the state of Michigan that were part of that agreement. And so we had one from the get-go. And it just so happened this was 2024. And so, we've been cutting every year since 2021. And our transformative agreement was up, but it was very popular. We thought it had a lot of uptake, and so I didn't want to let go of it. So I contacted my sales representative and I said, "Look, we're not going to be able to renew this transformative agreement. Um, is there anything that we can do to still support open access?" And she introduced the WOA account to me, and I talked with my liaisons during a collection development meeting, and we decided that we were going to try it out. And so we switched directly from a transformative agreement to the WOAA account. It was kind of a no-brainer. It's not going to be as easy for us to do that with other journal packages that we're going to be having to essentially break up and subscribe to titles individually, but this one was kind of super easy. So that's how it happened.
Great. Yeah, we love to hear that because the second part of this were the operational steps that were most critical. And I think you kind of touched on that already, evaluating all of your options and getting in touch with your account manager and just having that line of communication open. So that's a great story. We have one more, and we might be able to wrap up a little bit early and give people the rest of their days. Sarah, this would be for you and kind of specific to the customer. But if you want to touch on this a bit, they said that they just signed on for Wiley's Read and Publish agreement. So they wanted to know, how does all of this work differently for them?
So it depends upon what your relationship was before, and what your goals are right now. I think the easiest, and when what your specific questions are, what I can do is drop my email into the chat, and you can contact me directly, and I can provide better answers in terms of what your concerns are, and what you would like more details on. Um, and I think it's basically, as I had said before, if you're not finding the answers, don't hesitate to contact us. We're constantly answering questions. We're always available, because it is specific to each institution or consortium's needs, and everybody has different questions. So I'll put my email in the chat now, and I can directly answer your questions.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. And with that, I know we received a few specific questions in the chat too, and don't worry, those will get answered. They will reach out to you directly and answer those questions since we're a little short on time. But thank you again to all of the speakers. This was a great program. We appreciate your time, and for sharing your expertise and your insights today. A recording of this session, along with a slide deck, will be sent to you following the program. If you would like to learn more about anything discussed in today's program, please reach out to libraryinfo@wiley.com. Otherwise, we appreciate your participation and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.